This is the Power Platform Daily Brief from CRM Audio for Friday, May 24th, 2019. What you need to know about the Power Platform today in 10 minutes or less. I'm Brad Koontz. Today we'll talk to George Granata from Microsoft for the Friday Power Conversation. George Granata, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Great to be with you, Brad.
So George, first of all, full disclosure, George and I don't only work together, but we're also neighbors. So it's nice to have a neighborly voice here on the podcast this morning.
Yes, looking forward to this discussion. Thank you so much, Brad.
We'll try to make sure this doesn't devolve into an episode of What's Up, Dunwoody, which is one of my other favorite podcasts.
Okay.
Let's try to stay focused.
Yes.
So George, you're a technical specialist focused in PubSec for Microsoft. Tell us, how did you get here?
Right. So interestingly enough, about 7 years ago, I was recruited to be the first Dynamics X for public sector consultant in our Microsoft Consulting Services organization.
This is the Friday Power Conversation. The way it works, we'll ask a couple of questions. And then we'll play a little game called Buy and Sell. So first question, wanted to ask you, where you're sitting, the roadmap and the pace of change, what are your thoughts around the roadmap and the pace of change?
You would think as an internal Microsoft employee, I would be ahead of customers and in understanding where we sit from a roadmap perspective, but that's not necessarily always the case. There are customers and partners who are engaged in a lot of preview type of activities. So I'm really, it's incumbent on me to kind of take a look out at the roadmap assets that we publish, update frequently to stay on top of what's coming out. And, we only get maybe 1 week of formal training a year. It's in the form of what used to be known as Tech Ready, but every January or February, I'll go out to the Seattle area and engage in a hardcore week of learning. But it's almost some of the stuff that you've just learned 3 months later, right? So the pace of change is really, it's hard to do your day job, right, and stay up to speed with what's actually going on. And, it's incumbent on all of us in the Dynamics community, both internal and partner resources as well. It's very hard to do. And I advise anyone who's new to the business not to be discouraged by the fact that it's always hard to be kind of bleeding edge in all things Dynamics 365, especially given the breadth of the entire platform, right, extending from F&O all the way through customer engagement and then other ancillary things like platform and the whole suite of Azure services that kind of tie into this and make the one Microsoft stack such a compelling development platform, or just platform overall for our customers.
So speaking of platform and speaking of kind of, I think sometimes when customers first try to understand the platform, we kind of go to market talking about the 365 unified platform. Is that true or false, or how do you explain that to a customer?
Right. So I would say we're making very good strides, significant strides really in the last 12, 18 months. The evolution of the common data service and common data model, whereas I would have answered that question 3 years ago, the notion that Dynamics 365 as one uniform platform was just outright, being untruthful, because I've been in meetings early on where someone who is technically savvy would be like, all right, so it's one database powering both the CRM components and the ERP components. And we know that that's not true, right? So kind of stitching things together with CDS and Flow and other elements of the Power Platform are making that easier. One thing that I'm really interested in learning more about, and I think it just went into public preview today, is the notion of dual write capabilities within finance and operations. And what this is, for those of you that haven't heard about it yet, it's creating the ability to, CDS has for a while now had all of the customer engagement entities inherent in that platform. So now R&D on the finance and operations side is starting to roll some of the out-of-the-box F&O entities into CDS as well. So the notion of dual write means when you commit a transaction in AX or you're updating master records, then the entities behind it, not only is the database going to be written to in finance and operations, but it's also going to write simultaneously, almost near real time, update the entities in CDS, thereby making it much more of a unified proposition.
Next question, unified interface, maker portal. Give us your thoughts there.
So what I've been doing in my demos the last probably 3 or 4 months, I've been converting everything over to the unified interface, right? And so since I'm primarily working with customer service module, I generally go in through the customer service hub, and that's the way of the future. So there's some interesting controls that you can embed in the unified interface, and I find that it shows really nice. And you know, if I have had to switch back between like the classic web interface and unified interface, the prospects or customers that I've been working with have been very excited about the way the unified interface works. Now, with the sort of rebranding, if you will, of the customization experience within Dynamics 365 for CE, you know, now it's part of Power Apps. The whole Solution Explorer morphing into the Maker portal, just another web interface for doing the same kind of thing with the updated application designers and the web and the form designers, which are really, really exciting to kind of model-driven apps in that mode. I think it's going to be a big education process for everyone that's been working with the system for the last even as little as like 2 or 3 years, just to see how you build out components of your solution. So again, it's might be a little bit of pain. Change always is, but I think it's really exciting to see sort of like the evolution that started, you know, that I saw internally 2 years ago, all of this stuff kind of coming together now, and the way it's taking shape is really, really impressive.
Thanks. So last question. This ought to be a layup for you. What's the best restaurant in Dunwoody, Georgia?
Okay, Brad, you and I have lived in Dunwoody. I've been here about 17 years. For those of you who don't know, it's a suburb just north of the city of Atlanta. Dunwoody's very much a bedroom community, a great suburban area within his families. That doesn't extend to the most exciting restaurant scene. There's another nearby suburb called Chamblee, and they've got some fantastic restaurants that, you know, there's this really neat Korean fusion brew pub called Hopsticks, which I love. A couple other great restaurants in that rapidly gentrifying area like Blue Top and Southbound that are really, you know, they're exciting, they're good, you know, made good use of old spaces within Atlanta that may have been a warehouse or something 100 years ago. So, you know, I tend to go 5 miles down the road the other way, away from Dunwoody Village, close to where you and I live. But
yeah, I would agree with you. Maybe we should start a podcast called "What's Up Chamblee," where we can discuss such things.
Exactly. Yep.
George, the next portion of this is called buy or sell. So just like a stock, I'll give you the idea, and you say if it's a buy, a sell, or even a hold.
Sounds good.
First one, non-developers writing Power Apps.
I'd say that's a buy. There's a couple of layers to this, though. Non-developers building apps in Power Apps, you know, should not be construed as meaning it's just strictly a lightweight development platform, because that's not true. So while I think it's super exciting that non-developers can develop pretty, you know, complex Power Apps just using kind of that drag and drop, sort of what we talk about as kind of like a marriage between Excel and PowerPoint, are more sophisticated things that can be done within Power Apps. So it's absolutely a buy that citizen developers have power in their hands to build Power Apps, and, you know, extend that to, you know, moving your Canvas apps within model-driven apps, right? So building a Power App, a Canvas app that's reaching out to multiple different various data sources and kind of pulling them in and showcasing them within a customer engagement screen, I think is fantastic. And you can do all that really with just configuration.
Yep.
So definite
Great.
buy.
Next up, portals for CDS.
This is an interesting one. I've been working with portals for years, right? Just interesting hooks back into customer engagement. The notion that now they're going to kind of decouple the Dynamics portals from just working with CRM out of the box. The fact that it can extend to CDS and F&O and all these other various data sources that are out there, I think that makes this a very compelling story as well. So a definite buy. So
last one, and this might be an easy one for you as well. NHL playoffs, buy or sell?
Oh, wow. Depends if you're from Boston or not, right? I'm a New Yorker native, right? My New York Islanders won 4 Stanley Cups in a row when I was a kid, so very formative years for me. But I heard a funny joke right after the Patriots won the latest Super Bowl that said, an 18-month-old baby in Boston has witnessed more championships than a 47-year-old from Long Island that likes the Mets and Jets and Islanders, right? So it's kind of funny, right, to look at it that way. So while having Boston, a big market team, and an original 6 team in the Stanley Cup Finals is super exciting, I think overall it's going to be great to see St. Louis Blues hopefully be able to win Game 6 tonight, and I think that'd be a great on the finals. But to me, this is the most exciting time of the year, NHL playoffs. A lot of my friends kind of moan that it goes on for 2 months, but I love every minute of it.
George Granata, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Brad. I look forward to seeing you soon.
That's it for the Power Platform Daily Brief today. Power on.